I want you to imagine that you paid for a guided hiking tour. And you and a bunch of people you don't know are hundreds of feet above this raging river on a very shaky bridge. Fear for your life. But by the time you get to the end, the person that you were standing next to, you feel this unbelievable attraction to. Is attraction really that simple? That's the topic of today's podcast on the Doctor Is In series of the Social Engineer Podcast, episode 315. I'm Chris Hadnagy, CEO and founder of Social Engineer, the Innocent Lives Foundation, and the Institute for Social Engineering. And we've been doing this podcast since 2009. And as always, my trusty co-host is none other than Dr. Abbie. Nice to have you here, Doc.
Good to be here, Chris. I'm Dr. Abbie. I'm a behavioral scientist, the director of education at Social Engineer, and a top 1 behavioral scientist. Wait, behavioral science expert.
You don't know who you are. That's okay.
I had one line.
It's been a long day. It's 11 in the morning.
I am a top 1% behavioral science expert. I think.
Yeah, we don't know what we are, really. We're maybe something that sounds cool on paper. But if you want to hear more from Abbie and I, because if that was not compelling enough, if you want to sit in a room with us and hear that live, then you got to go to humanbehaviorcon.com. And on November 14th and 15th, Dr. Abbie and I, as well as a host of other amazing people, really just go to the website and check out who's going to be there. We have a 2-day human behavior conference happening where we're blending the science of influence and information security together to talk about how science can help us be more secure when it comes to social engineering attacks. So just go to humanbehaviorcon.com. We still got some seats left, and sign up to be with Dr. Abbie and myself and a bunch of other people November 14th and 15th of this year, of course. As always, we want to invite everyone that's listening to our Slack channel. If you're interested in talking about social engineering, the link is down below. And we want to also invite everyone to go check out innocentlivesfoundation.org. If you're not familiar, that mission for our nonprofit there is to help geolocate people who traffic children and who create child abuse material. And a really exciting announcement for ILF is Dr. Abbie's first children's book has just gone live. So if you want to go check that out, you can find some links in the show notes. We'll put it down there. And why that's so special? Well, it's a children's book about empowering children to make good decisions, especially if they're being targeted by predators. But also, she was kind enough to donate all proceeds to the ILF. So what a wonderful thing for her to do, and what a wonderful mission ILF has. I think we're up to 574 cases turned into law enforcement. So just go check out how you can help us and support us there. And last but not least, if you like the music on the show, then it's none other than Clutch. Go to clutchmerch.com and check them out. They're on tour right now. So the best way to see them is just go see them live. They're awesome. And this episode today is because of a suggestion from people. So we really invite you to keep your ideas, your suggestions coming in. Give us a thumbs up and a like. That helps us spread the message. And with that, let's get to what we're here about, which is...
Today's topic is love at first sight.
Love at first sight. Oof, okay. So is it real or is it a myth?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I am a big romantic at heart. I grew up on Disney movies, and although I'm undeniably a very independent person, some could say hyper independent, but I love fairy tales. And I'm also a scientist. So as much as I love the fairy tale and I want to believe in all the magic, being a scientist means that when you have a belief or a desire, you need to take all the fun out of it and pull it apart and try and figure out why you feel that way. So when you pull apart the fairy tale of love at first sight, what you really see is a mix of immediate emotional, cognitive, and physiological responses. So breaking that down, it basically is a biochemical response. And the main thing that we think of when we hear love at first sight is actually just attraction.
Mm. So why is this topic so important, do you think? Why do we need to discuss this on this episode?
Well, the topic itself is very important because if you misunderstand what love is and you feel this extreme attraction, which we'll get into, and you say, okay, well, this is the person that I'm meant for, and you believe in this, especially if you believe in that there's one person out there for everyone, you're going to pick a partner who is unhealthy. And your choice of romantic partners isn't a mundane decision. It's not a decision that should be taken lightly, because the people in your life, particularly your romantic partner, has one of the biggest effects on your nervous system than any other influence in your environment. You're not picking a partner, you're picking an emotional future. You're picking a sense of safety in your future. You're potentially picking the father or mother of your children. So you're picking a nervous system in action. Is it going to be calm? Are you going to feel safe? Are you always going to be feeling unsafe, unsteady? Who you pick as your partner is extraordinarily important for your well-being. And if you believe in this love at first sight and you don't really understand what it is, and that it's mostly just attraction and other chemicals, then it may lead you to commit to someone who is not any good for you.
So you're saying that, like, if you walk in a room and you see someone and you're definitely attracted to them, it can't be real? Or you said it could be, but it could lead you down the wrong road?
Well, the experience of intense attraction and connection can occur almost instantly, but it isn't love in the deep, sustained sense that develops over time. It physically cannot be love because love is something that takes a very long time to have, because you need to really understand who that person is. You need to develop a sense of trust and safety. And it takes a very long time to get to know someone, especially because when we meet someone for the first time, we typically present a very different version of ourselves, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And some people, it's very intentional. Then might not be with malice, but they want to appear like the right partner when actually they're not. And it takes time for that to unfold. And it cannot be love because you don't know them.
So attraction at first sight is real.
Attraction at first sight, intense attraction at first sight, absolutely. Lust at first sight, absolutely. Because what we often describe as love at first sight more closely aligns with romantic attraction, infatuation, and cognitive biases. It's heavily tied to visual stimuli and not emotional depth. And love requires emotional depth. So one of the reasons that it can feel like love, what we understand love to be, is because it has a neurochemical response. So the brain's reward system activates when we see someone attractive or intriguing, and it releases dopamine, which contributes to feelings of pleasure and excitement. We also then get oxytocin and vasopressin, which are hormones often associated with bonding and attachment. Now, attachment can feel like love because you crave that person, but you are attached to them. It doesn't mean that it is mutual. It doesn't mean that it's love. It means you crave their attention. And this is especially the case when the interaction does involve some warmth or mutual gaze, which can also create increased oxytocin. And attraction itself can also increase the stress hormone, particularly adrenaline, epinephrine, and cortisol. And this is because the process of romantic attraction activates the sympathetic nervous system. So in simple words, it's your body's fight or flight response. And that occurs when we have high attraction, which elevates these hormones. So when we have that attraction to someone, it's like the body is preparing for a challenge or an event, and it creates this over arousal, which can lead to things like increased heart rate, sweaty palms, alertness, nervousness. And think about what we say they gave me butterflies. And it's that physiological reaction and the balance between the stress response, and you've also got that reward circuit going off. It's exhilarating. And it's this mix of nervousness and excitement and pleasure and all of these things that's very natural. It's adaptive. It's not something we can necessarily control, but it creates this really overwhelming feeling. And that feeling, you're like, oh, I'm in love. And you're not, you're in attraction.
And then making a lifelong decision in that condition could be where the big mistake comes in.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because these hormones, they really do override the brain. And when we're in these emotional states, we want to stay in them. It's like we crave this up down. We crave that feeling because it is pleasurable. And like it's that up and down, and we have that natural up and down fluctuation. when we're in that down, we crave the high, but the high feels so good too because we have that down. So it's naturally very addicting. So when we're around someone that we feel that, don't you just want to be around them? You know, you have this feeling when there's someone that you're so attracted to and you just feel so good with, and you're like, I don't know why I feel so good. I just feel so good inside with them. You just want more of them. You just want them in your presence. You just want to be around them. And it can be addicting. You can get addicted to anything that makes you feel that way, whether it's a thing, a place, or a person. And you can get addicted to that feeling that someone gives you. And it's like, if that person isn't treating you well, or that person isn't respecting your boundaries, or that person isn't right for you and in your life, then if you keep inviting them in because you want to keep that feeling, you can make yourself extremely unhappy.
Yeah. You know, I was interested in the one study that you put into the show notes, Dutton and Aaron, talking about that, like that intro where they're on this bridge. And then at the end, they feel like they fell in love with the woman at the end of the bridge.
It's called the Rickety Bridge study. So what happens is it's called excitation transfer. So you have a very stable bridge, small stable bridge, and then you have a very big, rickety, scary bridge. And what they did was they had men walk over either one of the bridges. And then at the end, there's a woman with a clipboard, and she's asking them questions. And at the end, she says, and she has her number, and they give the number and said, if you'd like to follow up with any questions with the experimenter. And the people on the Rickety Bridge, the men on the Rickety Bridge, they misinterpreted their arousal for attraction. So they were more likely to call her, whereas people in Safe Bridge, they didn't have that same physiological arousal, so they didn't need to call her. It's also called the misattribution effect, where you have this emotion and often things are going on in our bodies and we're always responding to the environment, but we don't always know what's going on biologically. We just know what it feels. And then often we try and understand the feeling ourselves. So we have this feeling and we go, I'm attracted to her. And it's a misattribution of the emotion. And this can happen with attraction. You feel all these intense emotions and you go, they make me feel safe. They make me feel so good about myself. No, they make you feel pleasure. And they make you feel this arousal, this physiological arousal, but they can't make you feel safe because they've demonstrated nothing that could actually indicate that they are a safe person, because these things take consistency over time. There's no way about it. There is no other way about it than love takes time, because trust takes consistency. It takes you being vulnerable and then respecting that vulnerability over time. That is not something that can possibly occur quickly, but it can feel like it.
I had a young friend once that he was hanging out with a group of friends and they got into a car accident, and he ended up in the hospital with this girl who they were just friends. They didn't really like each other, but because of that experience, he was convinced that they were meant to be. He was in love with her. I mean, they got in this car accident. They had this life altering experience. Someone got really badly hurt. They comforted each other, this trauma together. And all of a sudden this was his soulmate. And it was fascinating to see, like, you went from just being two people that kind of knew each other to we're going to get married.
Yeah. And there's a couple of things going on there too, because there is that misattribution, but there's also the trauma bonding. And, you know, with full disclosure, I am someone who has been in the past prone to making some bad relationship choices.
What? Never.
I know.
Shocking.
So much so that I actually have a tattoo on my leg of a person who has a heart for a head. Because I am also prone to thinking with my heart. And when you do those things, I can say from experience, it doesn't end well.
Obviously, that reminder that you put on yourself hasn't worked.
No. I mean, it works better now than it did, which is saying something. But when you think with your heart like that, and you don't recognize that it's a feeling, it is just a feeling, and our feelings might feel like information, but they don't always tell you what they think they are. Although it feels like pleasure and it feels amazing, it doesn't feel like safety. It feels like pleasure.
Yeah.
And then we interpret it. And often we have cognitive biases too. A lot of cognitive biases that come in when it comes to love at first sight. And the biggest one is the halo effect. So just before I go into that, for anyone that doesn't know what a cognitive bias is, a cognitive bias is a mental shortcut or a systematic error in thinking. And they allow us to look at a person that we don't know anything about and say, yes, this is the person I want. Because love at first sight, you don't know anything about that person. You meet them, you go on a couple dates and you think, oh, this is the one. You know, and you hear people go home and they go, I'm going to marry that person. And actually, you don't know what kind of father they are.
Yeah.
You don't know what kind of mother they are, what kind of brother, sister. You don't know if they're empathetic. All you know is the short presentation of what they've shown you. You don't know what their childhood was like. If they have traumas that will lead to trauma responses that just don't correlate with yours and there's going to be conflict, you don't know how they handle conflict. You don't know anything about this person that can actually translate into, can I have a safe life with them? But we have a bias that we say the halo effect is we attribute multiple positive qualities, for example, intelligence, kindness, compatibility, to someone based solely on one positive trait. So you think that they're very intellectual, or you think they're very attractive, which is usually the main one, let's face it. And then you go, oh, we're so compatible. Oh, they're so caring. And they've not really shown you much to make that conclusion. But it's a very common bias that, say, when we meet someone who's physically appealing, the halo effect can create this exaggerated sense of their overall desirability. And it can lead to a strong, instant impression that feels like love based on idealized perceptions rather than a deeper connection. And then one that I see quite a lot is called prototypical matching, which is kind of like a cognitive schema, which is everybody carries a prototype or a mental schema, kind of like a mental script of their ideal partner. And often these are influenced by things like early attachment, culture, past relationships. When you meet someone that closely aligns with this schema, whether it's an appearance, mannerisms, or communication style, it can evoke a strong and immediate sense of familiarity with them and a sense of connection. And this is sometimes misinterpreted as love rather than than recognition of compatibility with our idolized version. And you have to remember too, that just because they look like or feel like that schema doesn't mean they actually are. You know, what you do see often is people will ask you questions about yourself. And if you overshare, that information can be manipulated because you talk about things that you struggle with, or you talk about things you've been through. And someone who is trying to get something from you, whether again, it's malicious or not, because a lot of people go into a relationship trying to get something from you, but what they want is love. But they're not the right person, right? So if you give all this information to them, they can then figure out, how do I need to appear in order to get this person to want me? And this is a really important point too, because a lot of people enter a relationship from a place of insecurity rather than security in themselves. And when we do that, a couple of things happen. So you meet someone, particularly if you're very highly attracted to them and you want them to like you, you go in with this mentality of, how do I get them to like me? How do I convince them I'm the right person, rather than, do I like them? Do I want to be with them?
Are they the right person?
Yep. And the focus then becomes on, how do I convince them to want me? And it can be from love. It can be because you think, I could look after this person and take care of them. So you're doing everything you can to show them that you're the right partner. But often what we do then is we will alter parts of ourselves. Say you are someone who's very loud or likes to go out, and you know they don't like that. So you downplay those parts of yourself. And maybe you pretend to like things that you don't, or pretend to be more athletic than you are. And you're not doing it out of malice. but you're doing it because you want to show them, I'm right for you. I want them to like me. But that other person then, say they feel that sense of love and connection towards you, or what they interpret as love, it's a false persona.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not really that person. And this is so common. We do it by accident. We do it on purpose. We do it sometimes malice, sometimes not. But you go into it and you're going to end up in a bad relationship, because either you're going to have to keep that persona to keep them happy. You're going to resent them. You're not going to be unhappy because you're not really you. Or what happens most commonly is after a few months, your real personality and your real traits start to slip out.
Yeah.
And they go, who are you? And there's this tension. You're like, you're not letting me be who I am, but you kind of faked who you are. And all of this is quite natural. This is quite a natural and common thing, because most people do enter with that, I want them to want me, even though it does come out of insecurity. And the point of all of this is, through all of this process, it's a natural process of getting to know someone, getting through this period of who are they really, and really starting to understand them at a deeper level. You can't love someone, not really in that early stages. You're still getting to know that person. And maybe they come in completely as they are. Are you coming in completely as you are? And even if they are coming in completely as they are, you still can't get to know them and all of their reactions, all of their emotional reactions, all of the way they handle life and handle conflict, because there's just not enough time involved. So all of those things accumulated, a lot of it is a cognitive bias, and a lot of it is self presentation and false presentation.
I think what gets me about the cognitive biases is that when you start to get to know a person like that, and then you're like, oh, we are not compatible. You don't think that way. You actually convince yourself, oh, well, that's okay, or that's cute, or I can live with that, right? Because you're so involved in the infatuation that you actually begin to accept things that you were like, if you had put this on paper and handed it to me and said, hey, how about this person? You would have went, heck no. Like, no, I can't live with that. But now you meet the person and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I can accept all of that. Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all, right? Such a weird thing.
Yeah, and that's kind of, we have another bias called the retrospective bias. So you often hear people talk about when they met their partner that it was love at first sight. And then you're like, well, they had love at first sight. But actually, we have this bias where we have a tendency to reinterpret past events in a way that aligns with current emotions or beliefs. So say after a relationship develops, people may look back on their first encounter and romanticize it like love at first sight. Even if the feelings were not as intense or as clear, we create this narrative that supports the idea of destiny and instant love. And when we're telling that story, we reinforce it to other people like, yeah, we met, it was love at first sight. No, it was those intense emotions at first sight. And that doesn't mean that if you feel all those intense emotions, your relationship won't work out.
Right.
It might be perfect. It might perfectly work out. But the point is, at that time, it's not love.
Yeah.
It's love later on, once that emotional safety develops. And also what is really, really important when it comes to love at first sight, and one of the reasons we really need to understand that it is that feeling rather than the actual love, is because familiarity can make you feel it. And we have this preference for things that feel familiar or resemble past experiences. So say the person that you're meeting that you feel like you love reminds you of someone that you've loved or trusted before. You may feel that immediate sense of comfort or connection, and it can be misinterpreted as a bond or destiny. But what if you've grown up around extremely toxic relationships?
Yeah.
What if you've grown up with very, very negative influences? And this was something that took me a really long time to learn, because every relationship I was exposed to in my childhood was abusive. Every romantic connection, there was violence involved. On both my dad's side and my mum's side, there was a lot of violence involved with multiple partners. My mum was in a series of abusive relationships, one so that the partner was abusive towards us and the police had to remove him. So as you grow up and you start to meet people, we have to remember that our nervous system is calmed by familiarity, not necessarily healthy connection. So as you meet someone and they engage in these behaviors, what you have learned as a child, because we've done a podcast on this before of neurons that fire together, wire together, what you're exposed to repeatedly, you expect. If you're exposed to violence and toxic behavior and then love, you associate, okay, well, love means violence. And you may not say it that way, but that's what the nervous system goes, this is what's familiar. So when you meet someone that carries those traits and your body has all those responses, you go, I feel so good with them. They make me feel so safe and good. And I feel all this pleasure. Actually, you just feel familiar, but it's a familiar danger. And it can get you in some really negative situations because you can interpret that as a safe place. Because that's what the brain does. It feels safe with familiarity because it can predict it. Just because it can predict it doesn't mean that it's healthy. So if you have that feeling, go, this is love at first sight. I feel like one thing that I have personally said and I've heard said from young women is they felt like home. And that's what it does when someone's familiar. They feel like home. But what if home was a very unsafe place? And you can interpret that as love. And actually, you can get into really dangerous situations. And it's like if you look at victims of domestic abuse, and often what you see is they were abused early in their life or they witnessed abuse. Because when they now meet their future partner and they go, I love them, what they mean is my nervous system feels comfortable with them because they feel familiar. So it can be very dangerous.
I think I got really lucky then because my family sucked. But when I met Arisa,
is amazing.
She was the opposite. And that's kind of what attracted me, right? Is that I think all the relationships before reminded me of home. And then I meet her and she is like the complete opposite of everything I grew up with, right? And I was like, oh, I think I fell for the thing. I went, I'm gonna marry her. And she was like, I have no interest in you at all. Like she did not like me. And I ended up leaving Florida and going to Pennsylvania I was there for 2 weeks for our wedding. I ended up moving there to see if I could convince her. Here we are 31 years later. Right. But I think for me, I got lucky because it was the opposite of that. It was that she was not familiar. And that made me feel like, oh, I mean, not everyone has to be a complete and utter jerk. Right. You know, like there are nice people out there. What? Like, and that was so odd to me. But it's interesting to hear that because I did, even though it wasn't the familiar part, I was like super attracted to her. And I was like, oh yeah, and she's got everything that I didn't know existed. And I'm like, yep, I'm going to marry her. And she was like, no. She broke up with me too.
You were persistent.
I was.
And you got her in the end.
Yes. Yeah. But it's just funny like thinking about this, I definitely fell for it. She did not. Right. Yeah. It took time. But like you said, it took time. Getting to know.
And now, how long have you been married?
31 years.
And it took time. It took time to get together. It took time for her to realize that feeling. Because it takes time for feelings to develop too. Yeah. Like I said, you're getting to know someone. And this doesn't mean that these feelings are bad. And if you feel them, not to go for them, because again, I am a romantic. I think that it is very, very rare that you meet someone that you have this really intense feeling for that also has the intense feeling for you. And there is a possibility that your lives can merge together. And I think if you are too cautious, good things can slip away and good things don't come often. Life is tough and busy and fast. And if you let things sit for too long, often they go cold and you can miss your opportunity. So I'm not saying if you feel it, sit back and don't go for it. Because like I said, I'm a romantic, go for it. My favorite film is Titanic. She didn't get on the boat, she risked her life. I love that. And I think love is the most wonderful thing in the world. I think that feeling is amazing, but you just need to be aware that it can overpower your cognitive resources. So if you go in it cautious, but not self-destructive of this could hurt me, so I'm going to get rid of it before it can, because then you're just dismissing your own possible happiness.
Yeah.
It's just going in with one eye open and being aware of that our feelings can lie to us, but still pursue things that you think can make you happy. Just don't pursue them blindly.
Yeah, I think it's good advice. I mean, like, if someone is feeling that, they sit back and they go, oh, I feel this, but because of the familial. And then like you say, oh, but my familial heritage is kind of crappy. So maybe this isn't a healthy relationship. Maybe I should avoid this one. But
and
if it's, if it's like Arisa, it's completely different,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why that self-work is so important.
Yeah.
Because it's like I said earlier in my life, I would have that. But I learned that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I'm still learning.
Well,
but I'm better.
Do you ever stop?
We're all still learning.
Yeah. Do you ever stop? I mean, like when you stop being a human?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right. So, I mean, it's not like, I think as you get older, I know for myself, as you get older, like you have some ability maybe to control things a little more, but you're still human. So you're still your brain is still going to fire and still do things the way it's made to do things. Right. And that's going to happen.
Yeah. And you don't want to close yourself off to the world, still be open to it. But just if you have things that are issues for you, like I knew for me, that the familiarity was an issue for me after I did get into some bad relationships. And then it happened a couple times and you realize that you're the common denominator. You have a responsibility to work on yourself.
Yeah.
So you don't get yourself in those situations anymore. And every relationship, whether it's friendship, family, or intimate relationship, they're all learning lessons. You learn things with them. People come and go, and you've got to let people come in and out of your life as required. And sometimes that means letting people go, but you take the lesson so that your next time you moving forward a little bit more aware of who you are and what you want and what you don't want. And again, if you are someone that is very, very prone to this love at first sight, realizing now a lot of it is biases, maybe take the time to sit back and think, okay, well, where are my shortcomings? What is something I notice as a pattern in my past relationships? Because maybe there's a bias that you're really prone to. Because like Chris, you said you weren't prone to the same biases. There are so many.
Oh, yeah.
And we're all very different. So taking the time to figure out what your patterns have been so you don't keep repeating them in the future is important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what I was thinking as you were saying that is self-awareness is the big key.
Yeah.
And this is where like working on yourself really can help you make much better decisions in life, not just in relationships, but I think in life in general.
Yeah.
Well, as always, a great topic. And if anyone's interested, I think there's about, 10 or 11 references that Dr. Abbie has. We'll put them in the show notes. You can take a look at some of those studies, which are really fascinating on this topic. So thank you for doing that research. This was a good one by recommendation. So next month, we're going to be talking about the science behind intuition. And that's going to be an interesting one. So I'm looking forward to that because, I don't know, intuition feels like sometimes magic, and especially it can fool you when you're right. Right. Yeah. So I can't wait to discuss this one. It's going to be fun. So thanks again for all the research, Dr. Abbie. Thank you for the suggestions. Keep them coming. Give us a thumbs up, a like, and hopefully this episode will help you become more self-aware and make better decisions. Until next month, stay safe.